internet, self-appointed scientists are filming outrageous acts of science. These internet heroes are doing bizarre experiments, making extraordinary inventions, and creating amazing scientific studies. We've gathered a team of top science brains to analyze just how they do it, why they do it, and choose the very best. It's science, but not as you know it. So stand back and don't even think about trying this at home. No, seriously. In this show, we're celebrating the work of power junkies, the pioneers who wrestle the elemental forces of the universe in the name of science.
Electromagnetism, gravity, light, sound, lightning. Take all these things and create an amazing video.
To be a power junkie, you need to harness the most basic forces and turn it into something incredible.
I want to see the power of the gods.
So now we know what it takes to be a power junkie. Let's get our first fix at number 20. This strange yet beautiful creature is known as a Strand beast and comes from the imagination of artist and sculptor Theo Janssen.
This was very weird. This was a very strange thing to look at. It's fascinating to see so many moving parts.
We went to The Hague of the western coast of the Netherlands to find out how Theo's wonderful pets move.
The autonomy of the beast is that they have a backbone, and the backbone can make a circular movement like this. And you can see that as soon as it's on the ground, that the pencil is drawing a straight line. And that means that the animal is drawing a straight line as well, so it stays on the same level.
So if that's how the beast moves, where does the power come from?
Theo Janssen is very big on the idea that his creations are powered by the wind. And even when there's no wind, he stores up wind in pop bottles and then releases that wind. And the mechanisms he's come up with to not only harness the wind, but store it and reuse it later are incredible.
Incredible is the word. First, wind power is captured by the sails. They turn a central spine, pumping air like a bicycle pump into empty bottles, where it's stored. To unleash the beast, Theo opens a valve and the pressurized air in the bottles releases, pneumatically driving it forward. Over the years, Theo has forgotten more about wind power than most of us will learn, including how his creations actually work.
Recently, I tried to reconstruct the mathematical basis of the beast. Before I die, I want to know how it works.
That was wind. Now for water. At number 19, witness how our next junkie transforms H2O in an instant. When temperatures plummeted to 30 degrees below in Yellowknife, Canada, Samantha Stewart got her kettle, but not to make tea. She had something far more magical up her sleeve.
Oh, wow.
She's just got this sort of instant snow cloud. It's just amazing.
Samantha's Arctic annex have sparked a worldwide craze. From Finland to the North Pole to Canada, people have gone snow cloud crazy, earning Samantha a cool 19th spot on our countdown.
There's a lot of things going on here, and it takes advantage of the properties of water at high temperatures.
In that lady's cup, you've got a mixture of water molecules, and some of them are going to be really hot, high energy, moving around really quickly, and then you've got some which will be cold, moving around a bit more sluggishly, a bit low energy. As they're thrown into the air, the high energy molecules can break free of the liquid and become gas, whereas the low energy ones end up freezing into ice.
Some of it becomes in tiny microcrystals in the air, which sort of forms this fog, and the more solid ones will fall down to the ground. So it's a beautiful illustration of physics on many levels.
Ready? Oh, wow.
From kettle clouds to spinning smoke, our next power junkie uses one of these. It's called a vortex. There's one. There's another. It's not something you'd want in your bedroom. This is 24-year-old Johannes Geisel from Switzerland, a man who's modified his drone kit to show us the power and propulsion of a vortex.
I'm a big fan of smoke vortex rings. If you feel anything with smoke, with a hole in it, and you hit it the right way, you get one of these incredible smoke rings. And so this kid's gone to town on it.
So what's driving this vortex smoke ring thing?
First of all, you got stuff with some kind of a chamber. A drum is perfect because it's got the membrane on the back. You hit that, you get your pressure wave. And when the pressure wave hits that hole, the process of it coming out sets up this spinning vortex ring.
Smoke that's ejected from this bass drum is interacting with the air molecules around it. And it's the interaction between the smoke molecules and the air molecules, and friction between those, which is causing this vortex to form.
The spinning smoke makes a beautiful O. But how does it move across the room to puff out a candle?
The spinning action is what propels it. So they're not just drifting, they're actually propelling themselves across the room and then extinguishing that candle.
Johannes, you and your smoky O's are what power junkies are all about. Your eyes are not deceiving you. This Transcendental Express really is floating on its tracks.
My first thought was, I wish I had this as a kid.
There's magic happening there.
No, it's not magic, it's science. The clever people at Montreal's WOW Lab are using a basic force of the universe to pull this trick off. Magnetism. And if you want to know how, keep listening.
What these guys have set up is a track full of magnets. They've set up a train, which is full of superconducting disks.
So we all have the experience of holding two bar magnets with the same poles facing each other, and you feel this repulsive force. So that's exactly what's happening in this train. So what a superconductor does is it expels magnetic fields that are in it. This is known as the Meissner effect.
So if magnetism keeps it afloat, how does it stay on the track? Hey, look, it even knows when to go around a corner.
In this case, you would see our superconductor here, and you would see magnetic field lines pushing up here, and then coming around it. And these ones coming around it are actually also helping push it in. So in that way, it's lifting it, and it's also keeping it on track.
It certainly takes toy trains to the next level, but you won't find this in your local toy shop. To keep the superconductors working, they need to be kept at 166 degrees below zero. And that requires major refrigeration. Rick Coleman was kayaking off the Southern California coast in 2011 when he came face to face with a pod of blue whales.
You absolutely cannot underestimate the power of a blue whale. The dimensions alone are pretty mind-boggling. It's 30 meters long, the size of a basketball court, and its tail is 6 meters wide. It's got a heart the size of a car. The tongue is the size of an elephant. So, in power terms, when you're a tiny human in the water next to a blue whale, you are vulnerable.
So long as Rick keeps his distance and stays in his kayak, then he should be okay. Oh, okay, Rick, I said stay in the kayak.
It's not going to eat him. It's not going to hunt him down. But by virtue of the fact that its sonar isn't particularly well developed and its eyesight isn't fantastic, so inadvertently it may end up knocking him with its tail or those enormous pectoral fins that it has. They've been known to turn over boats. So he wasn't in the safest position ever.
Okay, so you may think Rick's insane, but there is a method to his madness. Rick has spotted something in this whale's behavior that allows him to get up close and personal.
I think Rick's been smart here. A whale of this size would be able to have a huge amount of oxygen in its body and stay under the water for a really long time. But Rick's realised that this whale is lunge feeding. It's preoccupied with catching krill, and it'll go beneath the surface, spend not a great deal of time underneath. It uses up a lot of energy while it lunge feeds and needs to come back up for oxygen quite quickly afterwards. So Rick gets lots of chances to film it as he kayaks along.
I do like how the guy has seen a blue whale up close, and how's he going to express the majesty and the wonder of what he's just seen. He just sort of stops and thinks and then just goes, woohoo!
So far, our power junkies have tamed vortices and wrestled magnetism. Coming up, it's Power Junkies to the power of 10, as we see air pressure make a toilet roll disappear, and gravity defied by the world's best balancer. All this and more on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our countdown of the Internet's top power junkies. As the power increases, our experts want to see the forces of the universe mastered in even more ingenious ways. So where better to start than with an airplane toilet? Absolutely.
This is the most exciting thing I've ever seen with a toilet roll.
What's the best way to get over the fear of flying? Well, for New Yorker Mark Malkoff, it was living on a plane for a record-breaking 30 days. But what pleased our experts was that he used the time to answer the oldest question in aviation. How powerful is the flush in a plane's toilet?
I put the toilet paper, one end, in the toilet, and then roll the entire roll in the aisle of the airplane, and then I press flush. And supposedly, it will suck the entire roll into the toilet. Let's see if it works.
Impressive. But what's behind this toilet's potent vacuum?
The airplane is incapable of carrying the weight of water needed to flush in a conventional sense everybody's product in the toilet, right? So they have to completely redesign the flush, and they do this with a vacuum flush. The pressure outside is very, very low. The pressure inside relatively is a lot higher. By a clever system of valves and tanks, they're able to tap off some of this pressure. So you have this tank which is extremely low pressure, and then the relatively high pressure of the toilet. By pressing a button and opening this other valve,
Mark and his vanishing toilet roll demonstrated beautifully how a change in air pressure creates a vacuum. Yes, vacuums. From your living room floor to space itself, vacuums are everywhere. So check this out. This amazing clip of a real-life Spider-Man was created by students at Utah State University. It's called a personal vacuum-assisted climber. Or to non-experts, it's a video of a man with 2 vacuum cleaners strapped to his back.
You wouldn't think that a sort of a household vacuum cleaner would be able to support the weight of a man and climb a wall. That just doesn't look like it should make any sense.
Now, at first glance, it may seem implausible, but these aren't any old vacuum cleaners. No, they have suction pads attached.
You've got the pressure outside the pads, and then you've got air inside the pads. Now, when they turn on the vacuum, they manage to suck out all of the air from inside, and this means you've only got the pressure of the atmosphere pushing the guys onto the wall.
the normal air pressure, this, is so much greater than the air pressure in the suction pad that it's trying to get in, actually, and it's pushing upon it, and therefore creating this bond that, well, can clearly hold a man.
Our junkies harness elemental forces, and our next junkie has condensed millions of years of time into seconds, for he has mastered the power of erosion. Say hello to Flowman. This online sensation has used its trusty high-powered water cutter to become a superhero specializing in cutting things. We went to Washington State to meet the water-powered junkie behind the cave.
Hi, my name is Mike Fielstra, also more commonly known as Flowman.
When he stepped in to help a damsel in distress, he secured the number 13 slot on our countdown.
Having trouble with that split, friend? Perhaps Flowman can help you.
Flowman arrived on the scene to cut this bowling ball in half using a water jet cutter.
Cut the bowling ball in half? But why?
Once I put the bowling ball and the cutter together, I thought, I see where they're going with this.
I don't.
A split for a split.
The split and the split.
But while the pun is more Clark Kentish, it did set up Flowman's super sharp water shooter in full flow.
The amount of water that comes out of a water jet machine is very, very low. It's almost the same as the water coming out of your tap. But what's going on is it's coming out at very, very high pressure through a very, very tiny nozzle.
In fact, the jet can produce the pressure of 6 adult elephants balanced on one sheer leg. But is that really enough for water to effortlessly slice through something as tough as a bowling ball?
In order to go through a bowling ball, now you need to add an abrasive. And in this case, you add garnet.
What's the tiny crystal's secret?
These high-speed abrasive garnet particles are basically chipping away at this material. And over time, the cumulative effect of all these particles of garnet moving at high speed through the material just eats it away.
Bowling balls are one thing, but this cocktail of high-pressure crystals and water means that nothing can resist Flowman's all-powerful jet.
We cut anything. I've cut diamonds, I've cut glass, we cut 12-inch thick material, we got 24-inch thick material, that's solid steel. You name it, we cut it.
Stick around for more Power Junkies on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our countdown. Here's number 12. Now, to the untrained eye, it's just a green mess. But to our scientists, it's a thing of beauty. This mixture of cornstarch, water, and food coloring rockin' to dubstep is physics in action.
I loved this. You're getting these bumps and you're visualizing all the different ways the music is pulsing through this fluid. It was really fun to watch.
The power junkie behind this clip, Michigan student R.J. Fenton, made this liquid dance by putting it on a shrink-wrap subwoofer and then turning up the bass. But what is it about the particles in this bizarre fluid that make it turn from solid to liquid?
So this blue gunk is something called a non-Newtonian fluid. It's different from normal fluids, and the way it's different, it's all about order and disorder. It's completely the opposite of all the fluids that you would expect to see in your normal life.
So you've got your particles of cornstarch, which are all at the moment flowing around in the liquid, but then you suddenly receive a huge whack from the dubstep. Now, this whack happens so much faster than the particles can react, so they can't move past each other, and the whole system just goes whoop and folds over. Whereas then, once that wave has moved away, you can then end up with it pooling back out again, behaving as a liquid.
This guy is amazing. Amazing. He bounces anything on anything.
Yes, he can. This is Nam Suk Byeon from Seoul, South Korea, also known as Rocky. Rocky can balance any type of object. He's honed his incredible talent by practicing every day for the last 9 years. But to the untrained eye, this looks impossible. So how is Rocky wrangling gravity?
It's hard to balance certain objects because sometimes the mass distribution can be pretty complex.
Yep, like on a teapot, or a scooter, or a big log.
And finding that point at which gravity is acting can be pretty hard.
Rocky knows that regardless of shape, every object has a center of gravity. He just has to find it. Once he's discovered the object's center of gravity, he simply positions it directly above a contact point with the ground. But to make life easier, Rocky has a helper, Little Rocky.
Now, notice that he always has some little stone or rock that he balances things on. I think they give him a non-smooth surface so he can have more friction points, such that it doesn't slide in one direction or another.
He almost intuits with his body where to tilt it and in which direction to move the object, so that he immediately aligns the center of gravity directly above the basis of support, and then manages to hold objects that look pretty impossible.
Don't you just hate it when that happens? We're at the halfway point in our countdown, and now it's time for the power to get extreme as we hurtle into our top 10 pioneering power junkies. Meet computer programmer Rob Landley. He's carrying a bowl full of 196 degree below zero liquid nitrogen. What he did next earned him the title Power Junkie number 10.
As a bona fide engineer, I can tell you one thing. This is a bunch of engineers and scientists geeking out. And this is fun. This is what we do for fun.
It's definitely fun, but it's also science.
So what happens is the liquid nitrogen falls onto the swimming pool and almost instantly boils off into nitrogen gas. But what it's going to do is it's going to pull some of the water up with it. So you're going to end up with huge clouds of water vapor. The reason that the condensation cloud sort of clings to the top of the water in a kind of creepy fashion is because it's denser than air. That cloud might look a bit dangerous, but it's actually just water and nitrogen, and there's 80% nitrogen around us in the air naturally.
Well, it's not dangerous, but isn't it cold? Surely no one can swim in there now. Yeah, there's always one. So, will this intrepid swimmer be leaving with frostbite?
Whilst it might look a bit scary, it's not actually a very big amount of liquid nitrogen. If you think of, say, a kettle of boiling water and you poured that straight into a swimming pool, you wouldn't think that the swimming pool was suddenly boiling hot and going to kill you.
There is a definite appeal to jumping into a pool with this layer of fog over the top. I would absolutely love to be the second person to jump into such a pool.
So far, our power junkies have ingeniously harnessed elemental forces. But coming up, the safety fuse blows as our power junkies surge into the top videos. Welcome back to our Power Junkie Countdown. So far, we've seen power junkies that use water to slice rocks, superconductors to levitate trains, vacuum cleaners to climb. But our next power junkie takes it to a new level by making fire sing. Shh. Watch this. It's actually a singing candle. Yes, for the next few minutes, things are going to get weird.
I've never seen the singing candle demo before or the physics behind it. And clearly, the guy who set it up seems to be a very strange individual.
Odd guy. Surely everyone owns a pink unicorn transportation device. Yes, welcome to the world of Californian inventor Mark Chang. His attempt to fuse fire, electricity, and singing caught our expert's eye.
Candle, please sing it again. We could barely hear you. Sing louder.
I originally got the inspiration from a very interesting article where people were doing experiments with flames that are able to articulate sound by using electric fields.
This power junkie has harnessed electricity to make his candles sing. One of our experts shows us how you can make a spark talk.
It is actually the electric spark itself that's making the noise. And so we've got some kit here to show you how it works. We have these two electrodes, and we're going to have the spark going between them. We're now sending a very high voltage current, and it's flying from one electrode to the other, and it's turning the air in between into this glowing plasma. And a plasma is just like a very, very hot gas. It's actually that plasma moving which produces the noise. So if I now send a signal to that plasma, you'll be able to hear it coming out as audio. This is a recording of the sound waves that make up my voice. They have been played back as a fluctuating current because the current is making the plasma. The plasma is fluctuating the same way my voice was, setting up again the same sound waves. So there it is. There's me explaining the plasma through the plasma.
So if it's all about the electric arc producing sound, why is Mark talking to the candle?
Candle, you're dripping wax all over my table.
There is no reason why the candle should be there. It adds nothing other than maybe to show that anything can be made slightly more awesome if you set it on fire.
Summertime in Tokyo gets pretty hot. So what better way to cool down than with a splash in the Summerland wave pool? Just be ready for some company.
Well, the first thing you think is, my God, that's peak time.
Yes, once a year, hundreds of thrill seekers pour into this Tokyo pool to create this gigantic human wave.
It's this amazing effect where as the wave goes by, you just have this sea of humans going up and down, and it's absolutely mesmerizing.
Amazingly, despite the close quarters, the wave doesn't cause a pileup of people at one end. So what is it that enables these Japanese swimmers to tame the power of the wave?
This is a beautiful demo of using people as particles.
Individual water molecules do not move forward. The wave is a disturbance that moves through the water, but individual water molecules move in a little circle and stay put where they are. And you can clearly see that in this video. The wave moves forward, the people go up and down, but they don't go forwards and backwards.
It would be a right clean-up job if you had families and all sorts of people splattered up against one side of the pool. Fortunately, physics means that none of this happens, and we just have a rather calming bob.
It's a balmy 32 degrees in Sandefjord, Norway. Perfect weather for ice skating. But only a madman would go swimming. 47-year-old who took on the extreme cold and won.
I'm freezing watching this clip. That's how cold it is.
Tor is an internet smash. Nearly 2.5 million fans have seen him endure extreme temperatures. Normally, this kind of exposure can lead to frostbite, hypothermia, and heart failure, but Tor seems to enjoy it. So, is this hardy Scandinavian simply immune to the Arctic temperatures, or does he have a secret weapon? That might be a secret weapon.
It always starts to make sense when you see him swigging on what looks like water but evidently isn't, and you realise that he has got that I'm invincible feeling from being completely wasted.
He's clearly gone through a third of a bottle of vodka by the time we see him diving into the ice.
Alcohol dilates the blood vessels that are in the skin, and it directs a lot of blood to the skin. So it gives you that sort of warm feeling.
But it's just a feeling.
In reality, though, that doesn't really keep you from freezing. If more of the blood, think about it, is directed to your skin, it's exposed to the icy water faster, and so you're going to cool down a lot faster. The biggest risk is hypothermia. Your body will start to shut down a little bit. You can lose feeling in your extremities, and you can lose consciousness.
Yes, folks, diving into icy water while tanked is not a good idea. So don't try it at home. Thankfully, Tor lived to tell the tale. Coming up after the break, our experts spot a man who has power dancing to his sweet, sweet music on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back. Power junkies will always push the boundaries of sanity while pursuing power. Now, what do you get if you cross a dead badger with an electronic instrument called a theremin? Well, a badgerman, of course. And here it is being played by theremin virtuoso Charlie Draper.
It's a really eerie sound, and it's more eerie because it's coming out of a dead badger.
It's like British eccentric behaviour, isn't it? It's truly bonkers.
It may seem bizarre, but how do you make hauntingly beautiful music with a badger-covered theremin?
You have two antennae on a theremin. One of them controls the pitch, and the other one controls the volume. And these antennae have a magnetic field around them caused by the electronics.
All you have to do is interrupt electromagnetic fields as your hand moves in the air. You interrupt electromagnetic fields.
That's simply fed back into the electronics and converted into an audible woo.
And by plugging it into a speaker, we get this magical sound. But hang on, there's a badger in the room. What's he doing?
I don't think there's any acoustic or sonic gain or difference that the badger brings along at all. Looks great.
So far, our power junkies have tamed the forces that govern everything. They created artificial life powered by wind, climbed walls with vacuums, and blown out candles with vortices. But as we break into our top 5, we're about to see the true meaning of power. This is the 140-foot-high Corona Arch near Arches National Park in Utah. And these power junkies are displaying an addiction that caught our experts' eyes.
This video is unreal. They're singing and laughing and dancing as if there's no danger.
So why do this? And why is it fun?
The fact that it's potentially disastrous is part of the payoff. Before you do something like this that's really scary, your heart is racing, your blood pressure is increasing, and then you do it. And the release and the relaxation and all these endorphins that happens afterwards, it's a real high.
So the endorphin release after an adrenaline rush is like a little treat that our body gives us after we've been terrified. But why would it do that?
Evolutionarily speaking, if you've had to get away from something that's trying to kill you, this is something that would get you through. So animals will have to be able to use that adrenaline rush to get away. And then after the fact, the release of endorphins will balance the body back out, and it feels really good.
But be careful. Adrenaline can be very addictive.
When you've done something once, then you have to get a little more scared the next time to get your adrenaline up again, to cause that endorphin release after. So you get people that just do crazy, crazy things for that adrenaline rush.
This is Steve Meade from Sacramento, California. He's got a thing for building car stereos. The bigger, the better. And Steve's lust for sound has made him an internet celebrity. Nearly 13 million web users have enjoyed this clip of him turning his custom-built 20,000-watt sound system to 11.
From an engineering standpoint, this is pretty impressive. I mean, he's not only shaking his own car, but he's shaking nearby windows, and shaking them significantly.
Steve's awesome speakers can generate sounds up to 156 decibels. That's louder than a jet engine.
It takes your breath away, and it shakes your eyeballs loose. You know, it rattles your eyeballs inside your head.
There's no doubt that Steve's monster stereo has one heck of a bite. But how can sound shake those windows?
So you might not think that sound is very powerful, but it is still a way of transferring energy. So the speaker cones will hit molecules of air, they will hit other molecules of air, and they will transfer what is quite a large amount of kinetic energy from molecule to molecule, and all of that energy has to go somewhere. And if there's a window in the way, it will hit that window, and all of that energy will be transferred.
But rattling window panes is child's play for Steve's 20,000-watt wall of sound. It can also shred a phone book, turn chips to crumbs, shatter glass, and make his wife's hair stand on end. Quite literally.
Men with massive speakers in their cars. Why do they do that?
I don't know. I think I'm just a boy who never grew up, you know? I don't want to grow up. I hope you got that, because we don't have any more glasses.
Coming up next, it's time for the top 3 power junkies and their outrageous acts of science. Welcome back. So far, our power junkies have mastered everything that the universe threw at them. From extreme cold to the power of noise to electromagnetics. But this next group of power junkies find themselves at number 3 for playing with our old friend, gravity. Now here's something you don't see every day. 30 science teachers and 2,000 floating ping pong balls. The Ohio teachers became power junkies when they hopped aboard a special flight to show their students that science can be fun. But since no one can turn off gravity, how do you make a teacher float?
The pilot has to perfectly follow this kind of parabolic arc so that everything inside the plane falls together. It's absolutely ingenious. And for this glorious little bit of the path, everything inside the plane feels as if it's weightless.
So they're not floating. As the plane begins to fall out of its steep climb, it leaves its passengers in midair. Then, as the pilot flies over the peak, the plane and its teachers all begin to fall in a nosedive toward the earth. And finally, everyone hits the floor when the pilot pulls out of the dive.
It just looks weightless because the camera is falling at the same speed as them. If you had a camera outside the plane, you would see the plane crashing towards the Earth. This is exactly what's happening on the space station. You look at pictures of people in space and you can see that they're floating. Well, they're not really floating, they're still falling. And so is the space station, but they're falling in an orbit around the Earth. So that's what weightlessness is. It's kind of avoiding gravity by always falling instead of fighting against gravity.
It's been a great ride for these teachers and their ping pong balls. But the pilot has to pull the plane out of its nosedive, bringing them back down to Earth with a bit of a bump.
I especially enjoy that moment. They all crash to the ground, and you can hear one guy go, "Where was the warning?"
This is a trickle of water passing in front of a speaker into a bucket. Why is this number 2, you say? Well, watch this. Yes, that's right. This power junkie can make water stand still.
This guy, Brody O'Brien, has got a whole channel dedicated to these illusions, but we think that this is one of the cleverest, and one of the cleverest for its use of the power of sound.
Like all good illusionists, Brody won't tell us how it's done. Luckily, our experts know the science behind the illusion.
A camera works by taking a certain amount of photos per second. In this instance, 24. So it's 24 photos per second, 24 photographs per second.
What he's done is that the 24 hertz sine wave that he's playing through the speakers means that the drops come out at a very specific rate out of the end of the tube. Now, they come out at the same rate that the camera takes photos. So each time a drop comes out, the camera will take a photo, and then that drop will fall to the floor, and another one will come out, and it'll be in exactly the same position when the camera takes the next photo. So you're actually seeing different drops in each frame, but they're all in exactly the same place because he's synced up the camera and the frequency of the sound wave. In real life, the guy won't be seeing the droplets suspended in midair. He'll just be seeing the drops coming out in a stream. It's because his eyes don't work to the same way as a camera. They don't see things at 24 frames a second.
Well, that all seems simple enough, but what's actually going on here?
And then I think the sort of magic really happens is when he reduces the frequency of the sound wave. So he moves that to 23. So now, instead of 24 droplets moving down in a second, there's only 23 drops moving down in a second.
Each drop is just a little bit behind the next one when it comes out. So what happens is it's a different drop in every single frame, but it's slightly higher up than the previous one, and then slightly higher up again, and slightly higher up again. So it looks like the drops are coming backwards, flowing up against the force of gravity back into the tube.
Well, they say the camera never lies. But it does. Our power junkies have pulled out all the stops when confronted with some of the mightiest forces known to mankind. From the magical powers of superconductors to the sheer exhilaration that comes from terror. We've seen liquid act all solid, wind stored in bottles, and the best balancer on the planet. But at number one, our experts have chosen a duo who take the idea of the singing candle and multiply it by 1 billion.
How do you define awesome? I'd say it's a man playing the electric guitar in a suit of chainmail while lightning bolts zap him in the face.
Let's check. Yep, that's awesome. No, actually, it's amazing. How is this even possible?
It's an incredible idea. It's the embodiment of high voltage rock and roll.
Behold, Arc Attack, a group from Austin, Texas, who, like the Norse god Thor, fire lightning bolts in the ultimate display of sheer power junkie science. Our experts are mesmerized.
It was amazing to watch this electricity bounce from person to person and just, wow.
It is a match made in heaven to combine Tesla coils, large bolts of lightning, and rock and roll music.
That is the ultimate way to play electric guitar.
It does make for one heck of a show, but don't get too close. Each Tesla coil is capable of producing 500,000 volts of electricity, enough to give you a very nasty shock.
The Tesla coils look dangerous, and they are dangerous, actually.
In order to stay safe, these guys are wearing Faraday cage suits. These suits are metal mesh that surrounds their entire body. And you see the lightning trying to find the shortest path to ground. And when he's up on that box, you see the lightning going into his suit, coursing through his suit, coming out the bottom of his feet, and making its way to the ground.
Yes, Arc Attack rock out with 1,000,000 volts of electricity. This is something you should never try at home.
If they weren't wearing the suit, it would pass through their body and it would interfere with their nerves and muscles, and they'd go into sort of spasm and become electrocuted. But because electricity protects the path of least resistance, it happily dances through the chainmail suit and earths itself that way.
We had no choice but to catch up with these shock and rollers at a live show in San Mateo, California. And inside this suit is frontman Joe DePrima.
Faraday suit, when you wear it, you don't actually feel the electricity through your body, but the suit itself is about 30 pounds, so it's a little heavy to wear around for long periods of time, and it's cold. It's kind of like wearing a cold toilet seat.
Joe looks like he's playing the guitar, but he's actually using these electrical arcs to make noise.
The sound is actually coming from the arcs themselves. They don't have separate speakers. They're actually using the arcs to create the sound. As the arc flows from the Tesla coil to ground, it pushes air aside, which creates sound waves, which we pick up, and they actually control that to create music.
This is basically a PC computer that's been hacked to be able to withstand high amounts of electromagnetic interference. From this point, we can actually sequence music, and we can make it control the Tesla coils.
This is one of those concerts where I'd rather not sit in the front row. I would sit somewhere toward the back, where you won't necessarily get zapped in the face with a lightning bolt.
Until next time on Outrageous Acts of Science.